Yes, we're ready to go.
Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, commissioners. We are attending the February 9th policy session. And Gary, take it off.
Thank you, Chair Smith. First, all the commissioners are present. Chair Smith and Commissioner Shull are in the meeting room, and on Zoom are Commissioners Schrader, Commissioner Fisher, and Commissioner Savas. We'll start with Public Safety Levy update. We have Sheriff Brandenburg to give you an update, and I believe make a request of you, commissioners. So, Sheriff is here in person. Thank you, Sheriff, and whenever you're ready, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Smith and commissioners and County Administrator Schmidt. I'm Sheriff Angie Brandenburg, and with me today I have in the audience is Under Sheriff Michael Copenhaver and Chief Deputy Jenna Morrison. We're here today to discuss the Public Safety Local Option Levy. Currently, we're in the current cycle from 2017, which it will continue through the end of this year. It will sunset at the end of 2021. This levy was graciously approved by voters in November 2006, approved again in November 2011, and again in 2016. And this levy is, I can tell you, critical to keeping our community safe. It currently maintains funding for 18 Sheriff's Office patrol deputies, 10 investigators, and 31 jail deputies. So this allows us to maintain and keep open 84 jail beds that were open since the initial passing of this levy in 2006. It allows us to reduce the number of prisoners that are released early into the community. This also continues to fund our drug enforcement program, and it's designed to arrest drug traffickers and those involved in drug-related crimes, such as identity theft, property crimes, child abuse, and child neglect. It's a very successful team, an award-winning team. So the current levy funding is 24.8 cents per thousand assessed value. It's costs a homeowner on average $5.17 per month, or $62 a year. This is average on a $250,000 home. It currently brings in a little over $13 million in this last year cycle. So in the 15 years of this public safety local option levy, voters have never been asked for an increase. As my team and I began conducting our due diligence around the current financials of the levy, we determined that if we asked voters for another status quo renewal, that by the end of this 5-year cycle, we will be unable to maintain 12 deputy positions. That's about $2 million. And simply put, the cost of doing business is increasing each year. And this is simply where we find ourselves. Meanwhile, since 2006, Clackamas County continues to experience significant population growth. More and more families and businesses are calling Clackamas County home, which is a good thing. And because that our beautiful county has Mount Hood in our backyard, we are a destination for travelers and outdoor enthusiasts. But more people mean an ever-increasing demand for calls for service and an additional strain on our law enforcement resources, as well as adding additional pressure on the use of our jail by my deputies and then also the local law enforcement partner agencies the jail serves. Funding provided by this public safety local option levy for each and every position over the last 15 years is absolutely critical in keeping our community safe. And we thank the voters for time and again renewing this levy. And we find ourselves in a position where this dedicated funding is less effective and it's no longer meeting the demands for our resources. In early January, we worked with a polling firm to determine the viability of a small increase to sustain the existing levy-funded positions. We tested a 12-cent, a 10-cent, 8-cent, and then a 3-cent increase, which a 3-cent increase would maintain our current positions. And then also a status quo renewal, which would be the 12 positions at the end of this 5-year cycle that we would not have. The results are in the document that we provided to you prior to this meeting, the polling results. So voters from this polling results showed a 48% favorability for a status quo renewal, which would maintain current property tax rate, but would decrease existing public safety services. So that did not pull, that pulled the worst, just simply a status quo renewal like we have done in the past. Conversely, voters polled showed a 66% favorability of a 12-cent increase, which is a $2.50 per month in addition, which is be roughly a $30 a year for an average $250,000 household home. So that would, the 12-cent increase protects current services, would add 27 full-time deputy and detectives, restore 26 mental health beds in the jail, and add 2 non-sworn internal affairs investigators, and fund the implementation of a body-worn camera program for these levy-funded positions. It would be about a $6 million additional revenue on top of our levy funding that we currently have. And I have broken down into what these positions would be assigned if we were to do a 12-cent increase, which again was the most favorable of the voters that were polled. 16 patrol deputies. That would allow us to put 4 more deputies per shift to respond to emergency calls for service and patrolling our roadways. 6 jail deputies, which we need to restore the opening of the 26 mental health beds in the jail. 5 detectives, which would be assigned to investigate older adult abuse and neglect, child abuse and neglect, human trafficking, and felony person-on-person crimes. And then the 2 non-sworn internal affair investigators. We currently, as you know, have 2 detectives who sit in that position. Those 2 detective positions would return to the investigations division to carry caseloads. And then the funding of the body-worn camera program for these levy-funded positions, and that would also include 1 FTE necessary to support the body-worn camera program. So that's the information I have to share with you. If you had questions about the polling, and then I can make an ask.
I have a math question. I've been, look at my calendar here, trying to figure out the math on this, and maybe somebody who is smarter than me can help me. Sheriff, you said you're currently bringing in 13 million. Did I hear that right?
Yes, so
And that's based on 20?
So that is based on, so the previous levy, we assessed it at 200,000, medium household.
And you're saying, okay, so this is my question when we do this and we go to the public and we say, well, based on a home that's 250,000, it's only $5.17 a month. So during my time since I got elected, I too ran a poll, and I asked some questions. However, I did not ask the question of a home valued at $250,000 because there are hardly any in Clackamas County. So I called our tax assessor and I says, Tammy, what's the really median price of a home in Clackamas County? And it was closer to $400,000. And it's shocking to me that that's the way it is. So at $400,000, if indeed that's the median price of a home, and I think we all need to do our investigation on that, it would not be that price. It would be closer to an increase of $480 per year. That current home, valued at $400,000, is already paying $992, if my math is correct. And you know what? Okay, she's going to blow me out of the water here. But if indeed we are going to go out and sell this, how do I do the math on this? Please tell me.
Absolutely.
So we had our financial, our finance manager run the
Thank
numbers
you.
that we have. And so currently, a $400,000,
And I'm sorry, you have to wear your mask. If you want to
sorry.
come to one of these microphones at these tables, that's fine.
I'm sorry. So currently, a $400,000, I left my glasses, so I apologize, pays $99.20. That's what they currently pay.
Okay, I did my math wrong. I didn't carry a decimal point over. Thank you for that correction.
No problem. And then with the 12-cent increase, it would go up to 100 and, let me just make sure I'm on the right.
It would go up $48.
147, yeah. thank
Yeah,
you.
so we'd be at $147, and I apologize for that. Thank you very much.
This has
Okay.
been my life for the last,
So, getting back to my original point, maybe we should be talking about a higher-priced home to have a little bit more integrity in the process, because home values, from what I understand from a previous session, our home values in Clackamas County are rising faster than maybe any place in the country. Is that right, Gary? Did I hear that right?
I'm sorry, I don't remember, Chair.
Yeah, maybe Paul will remember that. I think Paul was there and on one of our discussions. Thank you for correcting my math. I always welcome that. So we are looking at an additional probably $50 a year is what we're thinking in this levy. Am I safe in saying that?
I would say that if you're basing it on
Based on a $400,000 home. That's my only caveat is the 400. So Christine, are there commissioner comments?
Yes, Commissioner Savas has his hand up.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm just doing the rough math here. So if we're currently generating 13 million annually at 24.8 cents, so I guess that 12-cent increase would be approximately about a $6.5 million increase for a total about 19.5 million. Is that relatively accurate? Do your numbers line up with that?
That's about right.
How big is the hole?
I'm sorry, what's the
It's
question?
it's not a whole. It's the additional amount would be that this increase, the 12 cents would generate would be about $6 million or so. Just want to get that affirmation.
Yes, you're correct.
Okay. So my not really a question, but I would be curious, maybe, I'm sure you don't have that, but to at least learn as far as how you plan on filling those positions, because if we or you or we put that out there in literature of what we're going to do with the dollars, I guess we're pretty well committed to that. So therefore, the reasoning of my question is that a data-driven recommendation for all of those positions? I'm just wondering if or how that really came about to ascertain that that's what the needs were.
Yeah, so we are working right now on a staffing study, which will absolutely, I believe, affirm the use of those positions. It won't be done until early May, which is right before this May ballot will be sent out to voters to vote on. But I can tell you anecdotally, and I think you sitting in your seats here, that field questions from the community is that we have gaps. We need more patrol deputies on the road, which is why you see the majority of these that will be going to the road. We have caseloads for our investigators that they have to decide which of the worst crimes that they're going to investigate today. So the need is there. I'm hoping to show that when we have our comprehensive staffing study done. But I think anecdotally, I can tell you that these are needed. We have not grown with these positions as the county has grown. And I fear we are behind, and I would imagine the staffing study is going to show us that.
Yeah, well, thank you, Angie. I do know I'm hearing frequently about issues about people that are trespassing or breaking into homes and so forth. So it seems to be that there's a rise, which is another set of statistics that I think that I would love to see at some point in time when your department's able to provide that, of what the increases of crime and where in Clackamas County those are. And I'm assuming that only because of the number of calls I'm hearing. And I do appreciate the fact that you're recommending some more folks on patrol and so forth, and all the supporting staff. That's absolutely an obvious need. And I know that based on the overtime hours of past, our guys are working pretty hard, and that just creates a lot of stress. So I appreciate all the work you do. Public safety, law enforcement always ranks high as far as the polling we've done and surveys we've done with our citizens. So this is important to folks. It's one of the most important functions that their tax dollars provide. So I thank you for your work.
Thank you.
Christine, are there other commissioners?
I do not have any other hands raised.
I thought I had a question. Well, you certainly make your case about the deputies, and Gary, what's next?
So on timing, to get on the May 2021 ballot, if that's what you're about to ask, the deadline for you commissioners to do your finalizing of the ballot title and other documentation is February 27th, so 2.5 weeks from now. So there is time, but it's short to get completed the work that you as a board would need to do to put this on the ballot.
So I need to say something here. I spent a very long time campaigning to be chair of Clackamas County. And I carefully evaluated my statements that I made during the campaign based on what I thought the community wanted. And one of those statements was I would not raise taxes, that we needed to learn to live within our budget. And I still maintain that. However, this request is coming from an independently elected official. It is not in my purview single-handedly to say yay or nay to that request. Also, I made a promise, and during my campaign and my most recent inaugural speech, to fully support our Sheriff's Department because I know that's so important to the public. We've had some very, very unique situations with the riots in Portland, and I know our citizens fear that impact coming into our county. I personally experienced evacuations during the wildfires, and if it hadn't been for our Sheriff's Department evacuating South Clackamas County, we could have had loss of life, but because of their efforts, not a single person died. And I'm eternally thankful for that, from the bottom of my heart. I, too, have also made it a priority moving forward with our emergency management systems, and that includes our Sheriff's Department. And I visited Incident Command during the fires, and I was most impressed with any government activity I have ever seen. But there still looms over my head a promise I made about not raising taxes. So I'm going to offer this up to my Board of County Commissioners. In tandem with this ask, I would like the Board of County Commissioners to reverse a decision you previously made in raising the vehicle registration fee. And that does not require a vote of the citizens. I'm asking this commission to roll back the increase in the vehicle registration fee at the same time, because then I believe we can make a case to the public that we are indeed good stewards of your money and that we take our fiduciary duties seriously in providing public safety. And I think that we can make a case for the vehicle registration fee because we do have the state vehicle registration fee, and I believe when the previous county commission raised that, they did not allow enough time for the increase in the state fee to come through. I also believe with COVID, there may be a silver lining in that our roads aren't as busy anymore because people are working at home, and that is becoming preferred in many sectors and even some of our county people. And you're driving on the roads, yes, of course, there's repair and maintenance that needs to be done, and that will be continued to ongoing, but I would submit that the rush to fix our roads may be not as great as the new priority of funding our Sheriff's Department, our jail, our investigation, and for all the items that you listed in this. So I'm going to propose that to this commission today, and I would like to have some discussion on that now. Christine.
I do not have any hands raised, although it looks like, nope, I have no hands raised.
Gary? Oh, Commissioner Scholl.
Chair Smith, the audit that's being conducted now, that we'll see in May, will show us if the budget of the Sheriff's Department is absolutely austere and every penny being spent as it should be. The need for an increase to the levy, I don't really see it as a new tax. I just see it as a shifting from where we were before in terms of need to where we need to be in the Sheriff's Department. The idea of the vehicle registration fee, getting rid of that at the same time, I think would go over very well in the county because that was a point of irritation for a lot of people in the county. So I think that's worth looking at.
Okay. Also, we're asking for a tax increase during a time when, because of COVID, a lot of people are out of work. And as stewards of the taxpayers' money, if we can offer them something back in return, a vehicle registration fee, and let's face it, a lot of those cars are parked in their driveways because they're working from home, but yet they're paying a really high vehicle registration fee. Any other comments?
Commissioner Savas.
Mr. Savas.
Yeah, well, I'm a little bit surprised by that. So I didn't realize that was going to be introduced today. With that said, you know, you have to give me some liberty to speak here today, Tootie, because of the nature of your proposal. So if I can, I would like to just elaborate a little bit. I did not support the approach of which the VRF came about, and I had some details about it that I was struck with, mainly along the lines of capacity, knowing that we're a growing county and knowing that a lot of our rural roads or country roads or even our urban areas are are grossly undersized. And I'm not saying we need big, huge expressways or anything, but we do have some big challenges. So I wanted to see more money, and the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, all of our cities, our districts, a number of our members were, back in 2013, were very engaged, back when you were on the commission, Tootie, and Chair Ludlow, we're very engaged in a conversation about capacity and trying to deal with some of the growth issues that are causing accidents and a lot of diversion on the highways and so forth on the I-205, just a number of stuff. I won't go into great detail. And also that we also put on the ballot at the time an advisory measure that said, do the citizens of Clackamas County want to be able to vote on any increases as far as gas tax or road fees and so forth? And the answer we got was a pretty resounding yes. They wanted to have the ability to vote. So there was another troubling thing. I felt an obligation to meet that need in voters. And ultimately, I was the lone person who did not support the VRF at the time. Number one, I didn't like the way it was put together, and number one, I was, again, as I just stated, that we had made basically a promise, if you will, to the voters that we would bring that to them. So now here we are, 3 years later, after the VRF was passed by a vote. And now our cities have engaged in planning and how to spend the dollars. Our staff have put together a lot of a citizen committee that is very engaged about the distribution of those monies. The Clackamas County Coordinating Committee, again, very engaged in the small amount of money per year that they're going to have to deal with some of those things. So really, there's a lot of momentum and energy and so forth. So to abruptly change that would cause, I think, a lot of heartache with some, and probably maybe some pleasure for others that want to see the thing reduced. I get that. But the relationships with our cities and our citizens that are very involved in this, I think that way we approach something like this has to be a lot more thoughtful and less abrupt. So while I understand your proposal, I don't think it's to conflate the two. There's not really a relationship other than, yes, there's a burden by perhaps if they support the measure but I don't think it sounded like the sheriff in her work with the polling basically evaluated those two things together. I think they were obviously separate. So with all that said, I really think that if there's going to be a proposal to either change the structure of the VRF or roll the VRF back, I really think that having some kind of a committee assembled to share how our community would feel about that, if that's something that we would really want. I don't think we should necessarily handpick people that are all agreeable. I think we should pick a mixture of stakeholders that, number one, some of those who dissent in the sense that they don't want to see the VRF or like to see it rolled back, and those that don't want to see it rolled back. I think we need to have some kind of input to gauge interest in and make people aware of what those needs are. The last thing I want to do is have every city in the county upset with us. And I think the publicity would be rather difficult, especially in these times right now. Definitely understand the finances. I'm not saying I would entertain it, but I think putting together a committee to review it would be the best remedy, not remedy, but the best next step. That's all I have for now.
Christine, do we have any other commissioners?
Commissioner Schrader has her hand up.
Commissioner Schrader?
Oh, Commissioner Schrader, you're on mute.
I think this needs to be a larger C4 discussion. And I will tell you, this is one of the very few, if ever, votes that I have taken in favor of this. And I did it for a number of reasons. We have put things on the ballot for maintenance of our roads since 2003. That was with Bill Kennemer, it was with Larry Soa, and we continued through the years to do that. And even with the help of our business community, it was hard to get that message out. And in the meantime, our roads were really deteriorating. And one of the reasons I was willing to go there at this point was largely because of all my years as a commissioner and my history here, and realizing that we were falling behind more and more. So I will own that, but I will also own the fact that one of my concerns has been the lack of equity with our rural areas, and I think that Paul has talked about that as well, as he's worked to pull together an act. But our rural roads are in dire need of some maintenance. And I've asked staff to pull together for me the projects that they've been working on, because I do think that it has significantly increased opportunities for our outlying communities in Estacada, Malala, and Colton, all those areas, our rural centers, as well as our rural cities. So I'd like to get a look at that. And I also agree with Paul that I think this should be a C4 discussion, because it's also set up expectations with our cities as well, and our rural cities. So I think that there needs to be some groundwork done in order to see if we should roll this back or not. And also I would like staff to really look at vehicle registration fees for comparable counties around that are comparable, not just maybe locally, but throughout our state and maybe nationally, and get a feel for where we are in terms of how much we really are charging people compared to other areas. So I think we need to get more information to move forward with this. And Paul, I agree with you. I think it needs to be a larger discussion with the partnerships that we have, because we've already started on projects. So that's the other piece that we're going to have to take a close look at.
Gary Schmidt, do you have a comment?
I have a suggestion. So commissioners, you don't have to decide on either one of those right at this moment, but I propose 2 policy sessions, one on the sheriff's levy with a proposed increase to write the ballot language, the ballot title, all of those documents that have to occur. We can do that at a policy session as soon as next Tuesday. And at that point, you can make the decision if you want to move forward, which we can then do at a business meeting. And thanks to Stephen who wrote all this up, a business meeting on February 25th. You only need one business meeting to make the decision there. On the vehicle registration fee, we can have staff also do a policy session on what we've spent to date, what the projects are. If we were to reverse it, what the mechanics would be, what needs to happen, a proposed public outreach campaign. We could put all of that together for you to consider at a policy session. So I propose 2 policy sessions in tandem going forward in the next 2 weeks.
I agree with that, and let's get this teed up. Now, Commissioners, I am mindful that this was not something that I gave anyone notice on. But this is a topic that has been deep, deep in my heart for over a year and a half. And I will remind this commission, isn't it 2016, we had an advisory vote that the citizens said no to the vehicle registration fee. I know there's problems, I understand, I anticipated all the suggestions that were offered here today, and nothing has caught me by surprise. But we will have this discussion regarding the vehicle registration fee going forward. We'll also have the discussion with the sheriff's levy going forward. And I think this is going to be as fun as I've ever had, ever. This is just great stuff for me. Mr. Schmidt.
Commissioner Savas has his hand
Okay,
raised.
Commissioner Savas has a comment.
Yeah, one last comment, Chair and Commissioners, and that is, while getting back to the sheriff's levy, I really don't think that there's 2 ways of looking at this. That the sheriff requesting that we put this on the ballot is the county commission raising taxes. It could be construed or more construed as the sheriff raising taxes if you want to say that. But actually, it's the voters' choice whether or not to approve this or vote for it. So essentially, I've never viewed as putting something on the ballot and giving the voters a choice as raising the taxes. It's really about giving them a choice. And they can say yes, or they can say no. I don't construe putting something on the ballot as raising taxes.
And
That's what the
I
vote-
would,
that's-
yeah, and I would agree with you. I take the same position as you do, Mr. Savas, on that. However, on the vehicle registration fee, the voters did not have a choice. And if we want to offer that up at the same time, maybe we might want to think about that and give our voters a choice on the vehicle registration fee. Thank you for that.
All right, so we'll schedule 2 policy sessions. If Sheriff, you could work with County Council for next week. Let's do it as quick as next week for your policy session. And then Transportation Development, Dan and Sue, PGA, if you could work together on the VRF policy session. If you could swing it for next week, great, but if not, the week after, but this month, please. So we'll move forward on both of those. And we'll report back to you, Commissioners. Okay, thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you very much.
Deputy, very much. Next, we have legislative updates. We have Sue Hildick and Chris Lyons from Public and Government Affairs, several bills seeking your input on, which you were sent in your packet. So as efficiently as you're able to, Chris, please.
Morning, Commissioners. We have a slew of bills to discuss this morning. I will begin with HB 2065, the Recycling Modernization legislation. This bill is being proposed by DEQ. It's the result of a 2-year stakeholder engagement process that through which consensus was reached, and it proposes extensive changes to state policy to modernize the state's recycling system, which is essentially 30 years old. Just a few of the things that it does. It's intended to make recycling easier, expand access, and as well as ensure that there is shared responsibility in the system. Right now, local ratepayers are paying for most aspects of the state's recycling system, so this would bring in the private sector as well. DTD strongly supports the bill, as do many local governments and AOC, so we're recommending your support for this bill.
Commissioners, comments?
I support the bill.
Other commissioners, please?
Commissioner Fisher has her hand raised.
Commissioner Fisher?
Hey, Chris, thank you. Hey, I'm looking online and through emails, and I'm just wondering if you prepared a list of what you're going over so I can cross-reference stuff in writing.
That's a good idea.
I believe Gary sent the packet out.
There was not a list, there were just the PDF attachments. So next week we can do that, have a list. But I'm sorry, there's not one for this week.
Okay, well, what can I reference right now? Because I really want to look at what bills these are. I can't, Chris, I don't comprehend everything that fast.
Yeah,
To weigh in effectively.
Yep, the PDF in your emails, HB 2065. We have 6 different PDFs on each of these bills. Each one has a memo.
Can somebody just send me an email so that I can look at something while we're having this discussion?
And
Yes.
I would agree with Commissioner Fisher on this. I downloaded one bill I know we're going to be discussing, but it's kind of difficult for us because we have so much other topics and issues we're dealing with, and I know how important this legislative session is to you, because you all, you live and breathe this all the time, and then you come before commissioners, oh dear, what is this, what is this? So if maybe we can have a little bit more concerted effort, on that would be great.
Commissioners, this is on me, not on Chris. So I just forwarded you his actual email with the attachments only to all commissioners, so you'll have that at the top of your email right now.
Okay, why don't we, I suggest us, we take 2 minutes right now, Chris, let commissioners log on to their emails, and we'll take a look at that. Can you just hold tight for a minute? Thank you.
Yes.
Forward it over to you.
Can you do it?
There you go. Okay. Chris, there's an order that these PDFs are in. What bill are you discussing right now, 2065?
Correct.
Okay, are you discussing the bills? You're not discussing them in order of the attachments received. Okay, I just need to know that, thank you. It's kind of how I process information.
Yeah, next time we can list them
Yeah,
out.
and
in a
what,
order.
hey, we're just all learning here, so that's how we process information. Okay, and what I do, being a former legislator, staff, I go down and the first thing I read is the relating clause. And that will say a lot at this point. However, that does not mean the bill cannot be amended for later. Now, Chris, did you say that AOC supports this bill?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have a problem with it at this time, but let's let the commissioners take time to weigh in, and thank you.
Looks like Commissioner Savis has his hand raised.
Yeah, one thing that always concerns me during the legislative session is that sometimes we'll go ahead, like now, early, and support a bill, and then in the process, something changes that is maybe has a negative effect that maybe we would have not have supported originally. So I'm just wondering strategically, Chris, if that is a consideration when staff is making recommendations as far as concerns that this could turn into something completely different. We've seen that happen as part of the sausage making. I know that Tootie's experienced that and Martha's experienced that in their roles in the legislature. So I'm want to be cautious to make sure that, unless it's some pretty solid or bill that's come before, like I think the next one, the right-of-way bill, I just always worry about that, to go in early as opposed to being neutral.
Yes, rightfully so. Most bills do change from when they're first introduced, and we are always paying attention to that and can adjust as we go. This one, there will be a public hearing on it in about a week, so it's timely to take a position. But again, as you'll see, we're suggesting you support, in general, statewide recycling modernization legislation, because there are multiple bills on this topic out there, and we will, if there are any red flags, we can readjust.
And that's just, we're just going to have to learn to adjust and compensate and be available. And I think we discussed what those next steps would be. So commissioners, how are you on this bill?
Commissioner Fisher has dropped off.
Oh, Commissioner dropped off. Commissioner Schrader?
She has her thumb up. She put her thumb up.
Oh, thumb up. And Commissioner Scholl?
Chair, I'm good on
Okay.
HB 2065 at this time.
So Chris, we're good on that bill. Thank you kindly for waiting.
Okay, thank you.
And Commissioner Fisher just reconnected, just so you know.
Okay. And what's next, Chris?
Okay, I'll turn to HB 3049, the county right-of-way fees bill. This one authorizes counties to charge permitting fees to utilities for the use of the right-of-way on a public road within the jurisdiction of the county. DTD strongly supports the bill. Right now, there's a significant cost liability on the county. We have to fund, or we currently fund 2 FTE for doing this work in DTD because we currently cannot charge utilities for using our right-of-way. Cities have this ability already, and so we are looking to essentially get on par with them. This is actually an AOC bill. They've worked with the legislators to introduce it. So we are recommending support on this one.
I don't have a problem with this bill. Other commissioners? Paul, thank you, Paul. Commissioner Scholl?
What's the impact going to be on the ratepayer for something like this?
It's a good question. Mike Besner may be on the line and might be able to advise on this.
Let's see if he's available. He is online. Let me go ahead and bring him over. There he is. Go ahead, Mike.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. That is a good question. I don't have an exact answer on what it would do to utility rates. What I can tell you is everyone's paying for it now using road fund. The 2 FTE we have that do this work are paid for out of gas tax and vehicle registration fees. So the public's already paying for it. It's utilities have free use of our right of way and they apply for permits to do work, but we're just not allowed to charge for the work we put into processing those permits as opposed to like a private developer who has to pull a permit from us that they do have to pay for. So that's what this bill is trying to correct.
Okay.
And are you okay with it?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Go ahead.
and then who else?
Christina, all the others, okay?
I don't have a video for Martha or for Commissioner Schrader or Commissioner Fisher.
Okay, then I think we have a concurrence of the majority.
Okay, thank you. The third issue is abandoned recreational vehicles. And this is an issue that you may be familiar with. Just last year, the county spent thousands of dollars to remove and dispose of abandoned RVs in county rights-of-way. And so since that time, we've been looking at ways for fixes to how to address that because there really isn't funding to address those abandoned RVs. County Council and PGA have been discussing potential legislative fixes on this. And so what we've found is that most abandoned RVs, at least those that have been in Clackamas County, remain registered by the previous owner, even though it has since been transferred to another owner who then abandons it. So if we want to go in and put a cost on the disposal on the person that did that abandonment, we don't know who they are because all we have is registration of the previous owner. And so Senator Thompson has been focused on this issue. There was a recent case of it in Sandy, and he would be happy to work with us. And our proposed solution would be to get an amendment that would add some language to create a civil cause of action and impose the cost of removal and disposal on any last registered owner who doesn't file the transfer when they give it or sell it to a new owner. If they file that transfer, then the liability would then be on that recipient, whose information would then be in the system. Council supports the bill, and it appears that there's legislative support for pushing something like this.
How is this funded?
Right now, the county, I believe, used general fund dollars to pay for the removal and disposal.
How is Senate Bill 466 funded? It says it in the relating clause, it says it creates a fund.
So that bill from Senator Thompson does create a fund. We're not recommending we support the outright bill. We're just suggesting we get an amendment on the particular language that I just noted and amend a separate bill that appears to be a possible vehicle.
So staff recommendation, if I see this and it's highlighted, bold, it says, Chris, support advancing an amendment to create a civil cause of action on a person who fails to file a transfer ownership and impose a cost of removal disposal on any last registered owner who does not file the transfer. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. However, if we support this bill without knowing how this fund is going to be set up, I do have a problem with that.
Again, we're not looking to support this bill or the fund.
Okay.
We would just be, this staff recommendation, we would be developing an amendment with this language
Okay.
to amend a different towing bill.
Okay,
that's out there.
yeah, with that in mind, I don't have a problem with that. Commissioners, you'd like to make a comment?
Commissioner Savas has his hand raised.
Mr. Savas?
Yeah, I agree with what staff's trying to do. Currently, governments, Clackamas County included, our taxpayers are basically flipping the bill to remove some of these vehicles that are parked in very precarious, dangerous places. And, the taxpayers shouldn't be doing that because someone dumped it to get rid of it. And it's incumbent upon people when they transfer title to fill out the paperwork and not let, again, the taxpayers be beholden. So the bill as it sits needs some work. But if this is the bill that we can get that amendment in there, this should actually relieve cost to the taxpayers currently throughout the state. Thank you.
Commissioner Scholl?
Yes, as I recall, we paid $4,000 to have a derelict motorhome removed here just 6 weeks ago. I think this is going to save us a lot of money if this amendment's made.
Other commissioners?
I do not see any other hands raised.
Go ahead on it.
Okay, we will seek that amendment. The next bill is HB 2497, Aurora Airport Expansion. This one was introduced by Representative Neron, one of our Clackamas legislators, and it would prohibit expansion of the Aurora State Airport unless it is consistent with an IGA of the Oregon Department of Aviation, Clackamas County, Marion County, City of Aurora, and City of Wilsonville. And the bill stipulates that the IGA must do 5 things. Ensure involvement of any local government within 3 miles of the airport on land use planning and decision-making, require adoption of a new airport master plan, describe the master plan adoption process, require any environmental impact analysis, and ensure a plan for future annexation of the airport into the city of Aurora.
Well, are you done? I'm sorry.
Just lastly, Clackamas County is named in this bill, and that was not sought by us, but we feel that in light of that, we should consider a position of some kind. Our recommendation is to support simply because it's a Clackamas legislator and it does provide a process on how to address this longstanding controversial issue. But I'll point out that the airport is not in Clackamas County. It's just on the other side of our border, but there are noise impacts, hence why we have interests within the county on what happens at that facility.
So I'm going to weigh in on this one. This airport already won a decision at LUBA for the expansion of the runway. And so I consider this an end run around from one particular legislator who may be representing a group that we know nothing about. And you're right, Chris, in that Clackamas County is mentioned in the relating clause, so therefore I do feel that we need to take a position on this. Also, if you've ever toured that airport and taken a look at the economic impact to Clackamas County from the Aurora Airport. It is in the tens and tens of millions of dollars. And I would submit that Clackamas County may be benefiting more from the Aurora Airport than Marion County just because of its location, the amount of private ownership in Clackamas County of airplanes, the construction of hangars that's all private, and the adjacent businesses in Wilsonville, in Canby, in Malala, who deeply benefit from the Aurora Airport and the expansion of the runway. I disagree with your assessment on this. I do support the expansion of the runway on this. Representative Neuron should have contacted Clackamas County Commissioners if she was going to list us in her relating clause. So my opinion on this is not to support HB 2497. Any other commissioner?
Commissioner Savas has his hand raised.
Yeah, coming from I won't say it's similar, but a slightly different perspective. There's a lot of stakeholders on the sides of this, and you're correct, Tootie, that this airport is in Marion County, and I've always been respectful of another jurisdiction, what's going on there, basically to kind of make sure that we're not, overreaching or stepping on their toes, even if it's a city in Clackamas County, that, we allow them to have some kind of input before we get engaged. And I at this point in time today, I'm inclined to reach out to my fellow colleagues in Marion County, the Marion County Commissioners, and talk again about this issue. I do know that it's created a lot of heartache. There has been a land use decision rendered. I just want to get their sense if this is going to somehow create either hardship or bad feelings, very similar to the VRF, Tootie. I always want to make sure our relationships with everyone involved remain as good as possible, because the key in politics is relationships. And that, whether that's our representative that wrote the bill, or whether it's our colleagues to the south in Marion County, or the city of Aurora, as a matter of fact. I'd really like to understand all those interests. And so today, I am more inclined to be neutral on this bill until I learn more or something influences me to change my mind otherwise. But that's where I sit today. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Commissioner Scholl, do you have a comment?
I know that the Aurora Airport employs a great many citizens of Clackamas County. I think the expansion of the runway has to do more with the FAA requirement for approach, safety requirements. Anything that increases the commerce at the Aurora Airport is going to be in the best interest of Clackamas County. So, yeah, I know there's a lot of sensitivity about that with the surrounding communities. I'd say at this point in time, I wouldn't support 2497.
You do what?
I would not support it.
Not. Christine, anybody else, other commissioners in the queue?
Well, Commissioner Fisher has her hand up, and Commissioner Schrader has dropped off, so we're trying to get her reconnected again as
Okay,
well.
Commissioner Fisher, go ahead, please.
So I have not studied the bill, but my understanding from the brief summary is that this bill basically puts us at the table for planning decisions. Is that right?
Correct. That it would put us into this IGA.
So I think that's probably a good thing, regardless of the position on expanding the airport or not expanding the airport. This bill doesn't do that, but it just puts us at the table. So in that sense, if I'm understanding this correctly, I would support us being at the table.
Well, I'm going to remind commissioners that this has already been decided at LUBA. So I think what I hear from commissioners is we do not have a unanimous decision on this, so therefore, I believe today, with the information that we all have, that we take a neutral position on it. Is that fair to assume, Gary Schmidt?
Yes, either no position at all, which I guess neutral is no position.
No position. I think maybe no position
position,
at this
Chris?
time.
No position of work, yep.
Okay, and Chris, is this up for a hearing soon?
No, nothing is scheduled.
Good. Well, I'm glad you brought this forward for us to discuss, and at least you know what we're thinking on it.
Yep, and that gives us more time, and Commissioner Savas to do due diligence, so.
Yeah, and by the way, let's reach out to the Marion County Commissioners and see what they are thinking about this, because they are very important partners with us. And I heard that they did not like this bill, but I just want to make sure that that is correct. Thank you, Chris. Please proceed.
Okay, next bill, SB 623, Workforce Development. This one creates a framework to ensure the public workforce system is responsive to the needs of individuals and communities impacted by COVID-19, supports local engagement priorities, and sets the stage for continuous improvement of public workforce investments and programs. And if passed, it would launch a 45-day period to equitably build a program that prioritizes those served by the public workforce system and includes an annual evaluation. BCS and the Clackamas Workforce Partnership are both very strongly supportive of this bill. PGA is recommending a cautious approach. It is very much in line with the priorities of the board and your strategic plan, but it is unclear which state programs the funding would pull from for it. So we would suggest we support, but do so cautiously. And as we discussed earlier, things can change and we'll learn more, and so we can adjust as we go.
Does Commissioner Schrader have a comment on this?
Yeah, I do. I think I'm off mute and I apologize. I had some technical difficulties here where evidently I lost service, but I got it back. I would say this is 628, am I correct?
623.
623, okay, and that is the workforce bill?
Correct.
I will tell you that it has been looked at by AOC, and I believe they supported it. Chris, I don't know if you know that or not.
I'm pretty sure that happened yesterday.
Yeah, I believe it did too, because I was listening in on them. And I will tell you, it is a priority of our workforce board. And I do see some issues with it. I think that that's what Chris was saying, is that they're really trying to talk about a workforce reorganization. So they get more dollars funneled to them in a more cohesive manner. So yeah, I would expect agencies might be questioning that. But I think that we ought to follow it. And I think that to the best of our ability, as Chris said, cautiously support it and see how it moves.
Thank you, Commissioner Schrader.
Okay.
I'm kind of in agreement with you, except I'm reading the relating clause halfway down. There's some language that says, requires the governor to collaborate with members of the Legislative Assembly to establish funding formula to support the WorkSource Oregon evaluation. Now, my experience in the last two sessions translate into increased taxes, because I do not believe that there is any extra money in the general fund in the legislature to do something like this. However, if they have some federal funds out there or manna is suddenly falling from heaven, I would go for that. But the manna from heaven, I do not think needs to be a tax increase. So at this point, I cannot support this bill based on the fact that it could be a tax increase.
Well, I guess I would say, Commissioner, that we don't, number one, we don't know that yet, because I don't think we've seen a fiscal on it one way or the other. And one of the issues that we're dealing with is actually the federal dollars that get funneled to the state. And I think we're really trying to get our fair share of those federal dollars. So I can see where you might be concerned about it, and certainly I would share that concern to a point, but I really think it's more of a reorganization so we can get funneled to us more directly instead of having it go through agencies which are essentially going to put their regulatory overlay over what they want us to do with it too.
No, you're probably correct on that, but I'm
Yeah.
troubled by the funding source. If, Chris, during deliberations, if we can get a fiscal impact statement on it, would be very nice. We can get a
Yeah.
funding source. If they can tell us how they're going to do this, I would like to take no action unless anybody, knows what's going on with this bill.
Well, I'll just chime in, that, I think what you're discussing is part of our concern, and our understanding is that the governor, the bill calls on the governor to direct the state agencies to contribute resources to this.
Yeah.
With the amount to be determined by the governor. So that is hence our cautious approach here, since we don't know what that is yet.
Right.
And I don't know if that would come, after the bill is passed, or probably, after the bill is passed. So I feel like we could certainly support the bill now and be involved in how that funding is addressed at a later time.
Well, and that brings up another issue that I have in transparency in government. If you pass a law, say, oh, we'll figure out how to fund it later, that is not being transparent whatsoever, and then my angst goes up even higher.
That would still have to come back to the legislature for approval, including any taxes that are proposed.
You know what? I think that we need to let the legislature work this out, and you can come back to us when they have a more definitive funding source.
And Commissioner, can I make a suggestion too?
Yeah.
Since our workforce board is involved in this particular effort, I don't know if I'm going to shunt this to Gary. Do you want to have a work session or a broader conversation listening to the workforce board? Is that something that would be helpful? Because the workforce board is made up, most of it is our business community. So I'd be curious to see what they have to say.
You could, it's just a matter of timing on this bill. If it's going to go fast, then just the time it would take to gather all those people for input. But in general, yes, it's an excellent idea, but it's just a matter of timing for this particular bill.
Yeah. And let's see, who is the chief sponsor again? I think it's Senator Frederick, am I right?
Correct, and Representative Reardon.
Right. And Representative Reardon has been a real champion of workforce and
Well, you know what?
really getting technical
Martha,
stuff.
Martha, why don't we have Chris call Representative Reardon and Senator Fredericks and see what they're thinking about the funding, so we have a more clear direction.
Let's get some information.
Yeah,
because
let's just call them
Yeah.
directly and see what they can provide for us.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
Yeah, because I know this is important. Workforce
but
development.
I'm getting it. I understand the trepidation. I really think that the workforce boards across the state are really trying not to get more. I think they're trying to get the agencies to give them the money that they already think they should be giving them.
Oh,
without
I see.
raising.
Okay, I understand that.
That's what I think is going on. So
Okay,
that's
well-
what we have to check out.
All righty.
Okay, all righty.
Okay. Next bill, HB.
I'm sorry, one more second. Commissioner Savas has his hand raised.
Commissioner Savas, you're up.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. I think it would be great if we could convey to Chris, so he can convey to others that, we're supportive of the bill. If, there's not really a new tax or a taxing scheme that's associated with this. I have not heard that, and I know that Martha hasn't heard that either, that there would be a taxing scheme. I was thinking this had come from, call it the general fund, if you will, or from lottery dollars or something like that, that would be, reasonably associated to businesses. So that was my understanding, but Chris, and others, Gary, I think it's important, frankly, that on all these bills we see, that we should understand right up front and be explained what the financial resources or impacts are for each of these bills.
Well, unfortunately, that isn't always possible. You'll see in the bill, there are literally blanks where they will pull monies over from the general fund, and that's just not determined until later in the session, so.
That's really interesting, Chris.
Yeah, and if you explain that's great in and of itself. But if there is something that there's a funding or a fiscal impact and it's in the bill, let's put that up front. That's a lot of paperwork to read all those bills. I tried, and I didn't make it all the way through.
I think so, yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, next bill, HB 2118, search and rescue liabilities. This one proposes to transfer the responsibility of providing workers' comp coverage to qualified emergency service volunteers away from the Office of Emergency Management and to the public body under whose direction the volunteer is acting. No funding. So HR and the Sheriff's Office agree with our assessment of this bill. There is no funding attached to it, so it's essentially an unfunded mandate on local governments. Both Lane County and Hood River have already taken an opposed position, have asked us if we would also be willing to do so, so that is our recommendation.
Have you talked to the sheriff about this? Because our sheriff does search and rescue on Mount Hood.
Yeah, this was already, this was their review on the bill.
Our sheriff's department?
Yes,
Okay, our sheriff's department has asked us to oppose this bill?
correct.
I would agree with our sheriff's department on this, commissioners.
Today I am inclined to connect with our search and rescue organizations and also legal counsel to get their opinion on this. We had a similar concern about that recently. I want to make sure that from a legal standpoint, my thinking and assumptions about this bill are correct. So today I'm kind of more neutral than I am anything.
Commissioner Scholl?
This bill potentially could put a burden of cost on us that we can't afford.
Okay, yeah. Any other commissioners want to chime in?
Do not see any hands raised.
So Chris, we agree with your assessment on this to oppose the bill.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. And then this is not in your packet, but I understand there was a question on it, so I just wanted to bring it up.
Sure.
There's a variety of bills right now on timber harvest and severance tax issues.
Severance tax, did you say?
Severance tax.
Uh-huh.
And I just wanted to give you a heads up that we're taking a look at these issues. AOC had a big discussion about it yesterday and essentially took an opposed position on most of these bills. From the standpoint, I believe that a severance tax is essentially a property tax, but the way the bills are set up, some of those revenues from the taxes would be provided to different programs at the state. But property taxes are inherently for counties, and so they oppose the bills as written. We will take a look at each of those because, like I said, there's quite a few, and get a better handle on what it means for Clackamas County, because there are provisions in the bill that where those funds could come back to the county, even though they get routed to the state. But we just want to make sure we're very clear on that before we come to you with a recommendation.
I would agree on that. And in light of the wildfires, there's a lot of timber that's being harvested that would not normally be harvested because it burned, and we can harvest, burnt timber up to 2 years to 3 years. And so will be a lot of revenue coming in, and the timing of this bill is not lost on me because of that reason. Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Fisher has her hand raised.
Commissioner Fisher?
Commissioner Fisher, you're on mute. Oh, there you go.
I know. I'm just trying to toggle between trying to review what was just emailed and get back to the screen. I wanted to go back to what Paul had to say about search and rescue. I agree with him that we should look into it more than what we have. So I'm in alignment with that. And so with that being said, I don't really like this process because we are held accountable for what our commission is doing, and we are not individually weighing in. We're not taking a vote. We're not, I would abstain on most all of this. I think that we should have had time to review it, study it, and so that's a concern. As far as this bill that we're talking about, I looked at the email that Gary sent at 10:37. I couldn't even find it in the attachments, so.
Okay. I was able
I'm
to,
just-
I
I'm
understand.
concerned about process.
Well, I agree with you, Commissioner Fisher, but we had to make some decisions today. I was able to open the PDFs on my email here on my laptop. That wasn't an issue, but I would agree, we do need to improve the process going forward so we really kind of understand what's going on with some of this legislation. And I think our staff got your message, and my message as well, loud and clear. We're going to make it a little bit easier for us to do this. However, as you know, as the session carries on, time will be of the essence on a lot of these pieces of legislation. So we may not always be in our comfort zone when taking a position on some of this. So it's really incumbent upon Chris and his staff to get as much information as they can. And then that doesn't keep from any commissioner reaching out to our own people, our own stakeholders who are in the legislature to get the information on it, just like, Senator Fredericks and then Representative Reardon. Just call them directly if we just don't know what's going on. This is a process. If you've ever served in the legislature, they say, it's like making sausage. And if you've ever seen sausage made, it's not a pretty process at all. And so we're just kind of going to have to relax and go with the flow on some of this and work within Chris and his staff and what they're trying to do for us. And thank you on that. Chris, is that all the bills today?
Yeah, and I would just offer up, I believe these memos come to you last week. So if you have the time to review them, and feel free to contact us directly on Monday so that we can get any answers to you in time for issues so that you feel prepared to make more
And so,
informed decisions.
for now, the schedule is we will always be reviewing legislation on Tuesdays during issues. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so commissioners, if we can get that in our mind belts and maybe do a little pre-work on that, that could help too. Thank you for reminding us on that.
Thank you.
Well, wait, Commissioner Savas had requested input on the forced severance bills.
That's what I just spoke
You
about.
just talked about?
Yep.
I'm sorry, all right. So yes, with great respect, Commissioners, you all got this information Friday at 11 a.m., and it was posted online. So this is part of your homework assignments. This is nothing new. It was not an email I just sent you. It was on Friday's issues list at 11 a.m., which I emailed you and was posted online. We can't go sooner than that because the bills are happening so quick, as Chair Smith said. Always open to input, but
Gary,
we've done this
it's
process
not-
now for quite a
it's-
while.
Hey, Gary, it is posted online, but there's not a link to the information. And that's what I use to rely on that I study. That's what I study in preparation for this meeting. And there's not a link.
So you want a link to the state bill on the state legislative website? Is that what you would like?
Well, if we could, I think just the staff recommendation that Chris emailed, that would be very useful to have that. And I think it's useful for the public too, to see what we're considering.
So I'm sorry, those memos should have been online. I'll double check. I mean, if that's not the case, I apologize, but that was my expectation on Friday. These memos were also posted online. I'll confirm that.
Commissioner Fisher, we'll check that too and make sure our systems are working the way they're intended. Thank you for that insight.
Yeah, if I may, Chair, I just want to say that there have been, similar to what Commissioner Fisher has experienced, there have been some times where something has been sent to us in email, but it's not on the website. I typically go to the website for that resource because it's much easier to go there than it is to filter through tons of emails. And it's overbearing. It takes a long time for me to find an email. It's much faster to go to the website, and it seems like the PDFs could be posted, not the OLS website link, but the actual PDFs that you included be posted on the website, our website. So that would be far more convenient. And if we could just make it a practice, maybe for before staff leaves at the end of the week, to make sure that it's in both those locations, or at least that location.
That is the expectation, Commissioner, yes. All
Thank
right,
you.
can we move on, Chair?
Yes, please do.
Thank you, Chris, very much. Next, Houseless Warming Shelter in Lake Oswego, Nancy Bush, Director of Disaster Management, please come forward.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am Nancy Bush. I'm the Director of Disaster Management. And so what I have before you today is a project that we're working on for houseless sheltering. I just want to make sure everyone understands that this is not part of turnkey. So I think there's been a little bit of confusion about that in some areas, but this is not part of turnkey, which I think you're talking about later today. So right now, Clackamas County is relying on non-congregate sheltering to reduce the spread of COVID among our houseless, because we cannot do congregate sheltering at this time. And the county's goal is to have 300 motel or hotel rooms under contract. To date, we only have 47. The Crown Plaza Motel in Lake Oswego has 161 rooms, and we would be contracting for all of those rooms through April. And it would be about a $1.8 million contract, just a little bit over that. So we would have service staff there on site 24/7. We have been working a little bit with the Lake Oswego at this point with their planning department, as well as fire and law, to let them know what's going on. So we've answered a lot of their questions, but we realize there may be more questions from the community, but we want to be transparent about that as well. The hotel is largely in a commercial area. The funding of the contract is through FEMA reimbursement. And for this particular non-congregate sheltering, FEMA is covering 100%. So there is not a match on that. And they are covering those who have underlying conditions for COVID. Anyone outside of that is needing warming shelters but does not have underlying conditions is being covered by other grant funding from either the federal government or the state. So that's basically what I have, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Has there been any outreach to the community on this? Are we going to?
So, yeah, that's a really good question, and we've been trying, the timing has been a little sensitive just because we want to make sure that the elected officials at Lake Oswego know. We wanted to make sure you know. And yes, I've been working with Martha Bennett on that. She has been doing outreach there and also to those communities that are nearby. I'm also making a phone call to those communities this afternoon. She has given me their number, so I can answer any of their questions directly as well.
Okay, commissioners, any comments on this?
Commissioner Schrader has her hand up.
Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah, I did talk to Mayor Buck last night, and they're aware of it, and they seem glad to help. So,
Wonderful. Any other comments?
I do not see any.
Gary, what's the next action we need
Thank
to
you,
take?
Nancy. Next, staying on housing in Lake Oswego, the Housing Authority has a potential land acquisition within Lake Oswego, and want to give you all a heads up before moving forward. This is not Project Turnkey, it's separate, but Jill Smith will present, and Rod Cook, actually Rod Cook is here in the room, Deputy Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services. Is Jill also presenting? Or just you,
Yes,
Rod?
we're asking Devin Ellen if she's in the waiting room, if she could be brought forward. And greetings, Commissioners, Chair Smith.
Hi.
Rod Cook again from Health, Housing, Human Services, Deputy Director. Basically, I'm going to let Devin speak, but I'll just introduce this to you real quick. We're basically just seeking approval to enter into an MOU between Metro, City of Lake Oswego, and the Housing Authority of Clackamas County for the purpose of pursuing creation of the new multifamily affordable housing within Lake Oswego. Now, Devin has all those particulars if you need more details, but this is really just about entering into a MOU at this point, is what we're here today to talk about. So if Devin can give some details, if she's available.
Hi, yes, good morning, Chair Smith and Commissioners. The Housing Authority is bringing before you a non-binding MOU with the City of Lake Oswego and Metro to explore affordable housing development opportunities at a property located in Lake Oswego. The The city wants to promote new affordable housing options in the city and owns 6 tax lots at the intersection of Boones Ferry Road and West Sunset Drive that are currently used for construction staging. And the city is hoping to rezone the parcels in order to support multifamily housing. Contained in a set aside of funds from the Metro Housing Affordable Housing Bond Measure, Metro has $12.9 million in acquisition and gap financing funds that are reserved for acquiring property to support affordable housing development in Clackamas County. The Housing Authority supports the creation of affordable housing opportunities in Lake Oswego and wants to ensure that any future development aligns with the unit production targets outlined in the county's local implementation strategy. So the primary objective of this MOU is to provide a process so that all parties can be involved in shaping the project and selecting the developer. And again, this is a non-binding MOU. We just want to make sure the board is aware of the Housing Authority's interests around this site and provide the opportunity for any questions or discussions at this early stage.
Yes, I do. And I think Mr. Cook knows what they are. So Lake Oswego wants an affordable housing opportunity, and, you know, I am thankful for that, And they're seeking assistance from Clackamas County Housing Authority to help them through the process. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Wow, you know, I think that's a wonderful opportunity. This is an MOU for a piece of land that is not that productive from what I understand. I think I know where this piece of land is based on your description. However, there are private property owners in the area. And again, Mr. Cook, due diligence needs to be made and outreach done to the people in that area for this.
Yes.
And are you prepared to do that?
Yes, I think what the MOU does is bring those 3 entities together so that we can do that in a planful manner and in a measured process.
And the process is we need the MOU first before we can do outreach. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioners, any other comments?
I have Commissioner Fisher, Commissioner Schrader, and then Commissioner Savas in line.
Ahead. Commissioner Schrader?
Oh, thank you, Chair Smith. Yeah, I have visited the site. It's on a major thoroughfare, Boones Ferry Road. There is housing and other commercial developments surrounding it. The housing is further back, actually from the site. And I have talked about this once again with Mayor Buck and members of, and actually past Councilor Teresa Koloff, and it's a staging area, and they have actually talked with us for quite a while about after the staging is done, using it for affordable housing. So there's been some outreach there already, but I think if they're willing to work with us on it, I think it's a good idea.
That's good to hear, Commissioner Schrader. Thank you.
And then Commissioner Fisher?
Yep, thank you. Yeah, I'm good with moving forward with this. Just one point for the record, on the website, the document for this is put under the warming shelter and not under the affordable housing link.
Okay. I'm sorry, Commissioner Fisher, but it seems to be kind of the way today is going, and thank you for that observation.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad to hear this. This is great news. And I'll just be very, very brief, but goal 10 of our 19 state planning goals requires cities to accommodate housing, affordable housing. And I really appreciate the leadership in Lake Oswego being part of this. And this is the kind of approach I think is really important to do it with the city and in concert. So, you know, I'm really excited by this. So hats off to Lake Oswego and our staff involved in putting this together. This is great news.
Any other comments? Gary, do we take action on this, or just staff
That
goes?
was just an FYI for you.
Thank you very much, Rod Cook.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, advisory boards and commission appointments. Christina.
Yes. Sorry, I just have to pull it up real quick. Okay, and this is online. I did check. This is for the Clackamas Workforce Partnership. It currently has 5 openings on their commission. 25 members are allowed with 3-year terms. They went ahead and received 6 applications, and 5 were recommended to be appointed. 3 applicants are new, and 2 applicants are currently on the board. The 5 recommendations are Tyson Arnold, first term, Kendall Mason, first term, Stephen Achilles, first term, David Green, third term, and Peter Lund, third term.
Let's see, what's the due date on this? Is there a due date that we have to make this decision on?
No.
Commissioners, I'd like to move to table this until next week, until I have a chance to ask staff questions and express an opinion on this.
So moved.
And it's been moved, seconded by Commissioner Scholl. So there is a motion on the table to table this until next week, and seconded by Commissioner Scholl. Any comments on this?
So just to Robert's rules, maybe someone can help me out. Is it actually really a motion to defer till next week, or a motion to table? Because motion to table sometimes infers that it's just done. It dies.
Paul, if you're more comfortable with a motion to defer, I can change my motion.
Okay.
That's fine, let's do that. And second, Mr. Scholl?
Second.
Okay, here we go.
And it looks like Commissioner Schrader has her hand up.
Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, just a point of discussion. I do know all of the folks who have been nominated and have worked through that process. So Commissioner Chair Smith, if you have any additional questions, include me in the conversation if you, when you have a time. Okay? Thanks.
I was gonna suggest that, Commissioner Schrader.
Yeah. Mhm. That sounds good. No worries.
Yes, okay.
All right, so moving on. First, I'm going to.
We need to take a poll.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was going to say, would you like me to poll?
Please.
Okay. Commissioner Fisher?
Aye.
Commissioner Savas?
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader?
Aye.
Commissioner Scholl?
Aye.
And Chair Smith?
Aye.
Is next week enough time, or would you like us to hold until you tell us to
Next
bring
week
it
would be fine. At that time, should get my questions answered today, I would think, Gary.
Great. First, I'm sorry, Commissioners, today is going longer than I thought, so I'm going to ask your permission to stay till noon today. I think we can finish by noon, but we're not going to finish right now. Does that work for everyone?
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Sure.
Okay. Next business meeting agenda review for this Thursday, February 11th. It is an evening business meeting at 6 p.m. There will be a wildfire update, a COVID update. You have 2 public hearings on annexation boundary changes, which you'll hear more about this morning shortly, and a consent agenda on all topics you have already approved to be on the consent agenda. I quickly want to talk about public comment at business meetings and seek your guidance on clarifying public comment. First, at Chair Smith's approval, we've already moved public communication to the end of the business meeting agenda instead of at the start. Only because, as of late, it has been taking 45 minutes to 60 minutes total over the last 3 weeks on public communication. And the priority, in my opinion, is for you to conduct your business, which that's why we moved the agenda items to the start of the agenda. On public communication, I'm reading right from the agenda that has been on the agenda for at least the 12 years I've worked at Clackamas County. This portion of the agenda shall be limited to items of county business which are properly the object of board consideration and may not be of personal nature. Testimony is limited to 3 minutes. Comments shall be respectful and courteous to all. Some things to consider, Commissioners, is you could put a time limit maximum on public communication. Perhaps it could be 30 minutes maximum. You could allow that those who attend in person have first priority to speak, and then those on Zoom would be second priority. You could say that everyone gets a chance to speak once at a business meeting and not a second time, although I don't think that's a concern of late. But in the past, people have come up to speak multiple times. You could limit the amount of time, Chair, to make it 2 minutes a person, or even 1 minute a person, depending on the amount of people who are in the room. There are multiple opportunities here. So just if we can, a quick conversation about what is the will of the board, of what you'd like to do. Already, it's at the end of the agenda, so we've taken that step. But further ideas you'd like to clarify for public communication.
Commissioner Fisher has her hand raised.
Commissioner Fisher.
Yeah, it seems that this interest stems from the last meeting where Chair Smith made a comment after hearing from individuals who were asking for Commissioner Scholl to resign, saying that the commission and staff were looking into public comment. So my concern is that an effort to limit public comment because certain members of the commission may not like the comments that are being made does not help us with our goal of transparency and public trust in government. So I would say that, yes, this is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable for all of us, and it's awkward and it's difficult, but we should not limit public comment on things that might be difficult for us. And I do not think that the comments asking for Mark Scholl to resign are political in nature, but they are a concern addressing the larger views of many constituencies within our counties and jurisdictions that have also called for Mark Scholl to resign. So those are my comments now. If we were to want to limit public comment, maybe we could add to the agenda a public discussion item each week, such as public trust and transparency, and let the public speak during that time. But we need to allow these comments publicly for what people in our community are concerned about.
I will say this, commissioners. The public always has an opportunity through the many venues that are now available to them that never used to be available to them. We know what social media has done. We know what letters to the editor have done. They can always submit an email for consideration to all of the commissioners, and that is ongoing. I don't admit that. I made a statement at last business meeting, and I'm pretty much going to hold us to the fire on that, and that is this. This is an elected board of county commissioners as a nonpartisan body provided for in Oregon revised statutes and in our county code. I would disagree with Commissioner Fisher in that many of these comments stemming from my very first business meeting on January 7th have been indeed political in nature. We serve the greatest good for Clackamas County citizens at these business meetings when we conduct the business of the citizens in the initiatives, in the codes, in the authorities brought to us by our departments for approval. Any aside for that, I think we need to have our citizens focused on what they think the course of Clackamas County is doing. I am going to propose that we have public comment at the end of the meeting, 30 minutes in nature, and we limit the public comment to 2 minutes. And I think anybody can make a comment in 2 minutes. If they desire additional words on the record, they can always submit that by email, make a telephone call, reach out to any commissioner for their personal comment on that. Gary?
Commissioner Savas has his hand raised.
Commissioner Savas.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to come from a little bit different place. I think anyone who has listened or watched the discussions around public comment and transparency that I have made in particular, I have always been an advocate for once a month evening meetings so that people have access to it that would otherwise be at work working. I have been an advocate for the public comment because way back when I first got on the commission, there was very, very little of that and very little allowances of that. And there was an effort by the chair at the time, back when I first got on the commission in 2011, to do the same thing. And the pushback or the blowback was quite significant. And out of that, we came with the agreement of, allowing the 3 minutes. I got to be true to the core here today and remain an advocate for that 3 minute limit. I am somewhat neutral on whether or not it's at the beginning of the meeting or it's at the end of the meeting. I think in some ways having the beginning can be an advantage if there's something that's highly controversial, but sometimes we make accommodations for either a hearing or separate public comment on some unique items that we know are garnering a lot of public interest. But with that said, my concern is that limiting it could actually have some negative impacts. The other part, excuse me for the frog in my throat. The other part about this is, I think Chair Smith, you do bring up a good point, and that is really the length of the meeting, and I think we need to be sensitive to that. So I think maybe what we could do, maybe a in-between point is really have a discussion. If the meeting's gone long and we finally get to, let's say it's 11:45, and we finally get the public comment, maybe we can decide amongst ourselves if we all have concerns about public comment and how much time we want to allow it, and maybe make an adjustment then on basically the majority what the board feels at that particular time. If there is, again, a time pressure, because sometimes I have meetings at noon. My NACO transportation meeting is often at noon, so I have to either miss that meeting entirely, which is a lot of the work that I do, and I would not really want to miss that. But there again, with all that said, there's one other element about this. There might be a lot of comments about a particular topic, and I know that the issue that is bringing a lot of comments are real. That's obviously, and it's painful. However, there are people that bring other issues that are important to hear that are not about, Mr. Scholl in this case, that I'm going to point out, or about other things about the county that I think I want to hear. And I think that they intend or wish to make sure that all the commissioners hear that simultaneously. So for all those reasons, I think we should do our best to maintain public comment.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I am doing that. If you will remember, before pre-COVID days, and I've asked the commissioners to please attend these business meetings in person, and you would understand what was going on, and I'm still extending that invitation for our commissioners to attend these meetings in person. Pre-COVID days, there was a card that the people filled out and signed their name in it, and they put down the topic that they wanted to discuss. We don't get that on the Zoom. We have no idea what type of bomb we're going to get. And I will say it's much easier to be anonymous and faceless when we're deviating from the business of the Clackamas County government. And so I have a concern over that. I will maintain that this body needs to remain nonpartisan, putting the political pressures that are ravaging through our communities right now. I would like this Board of County Commissioners to be above that. And in a way, a safe place and a sanctuary for anybody to come and comment on the business we're doing. And what I observed last week, at the beginning of the meeting, Christina told me we had 10 callers come in. By the end of the meeting, we had, 16 or 17? And it became a debate between the callers. Had nothing to do with our county business. One gentleman called in and argued with another person who was previously in the queue on a topic, and that is not the purpose, commissioners, of public comment. Public comment is indeed the business that we have at hand, and that would include what's happening in the legislature, that would include what any of our departments are doing, and that would include any agenda items, past, present, and future. So with that in mind, I'm going to try to maintain our integrity with the people who, some people have found what's going on disgusting, and it's keeping them away from making comment on what we're doing. And I find that very sad. And sometimes the loudest, most cruel voices tend to have a silencing effect on a majority of people who would like to call in and make a comment. So with that in mind, we're not going to get to a resolution on that today, Gary. I don't believe so. But I will move public comment to the end of the business meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And then one last thing, the weather forecast is potential for snow this Thursday evening, so tomorrow Chair Smith will make the call if your evening business meeting will be in person or on Zoom only. So we'll update you, board, tomorrow, and then let the public know as well. All right.
There's a couple of the commissioners still up there.
Oh, there's still commissioners who want to talk. Commissioners, we have about 30 minutes left of business, so if you can stay late today, that's fine.
Nope, never mind.
Commissioner Fisher still has her hand up.
Yeah, Commissioner Fisher.
So just before we end this topic, I do think that having a record of people making public comment is really important. I know when I testify at Metro, I have to sign up, give my information. I would like to suggest that staff look at that. There have been comments that I wanted to follow up with folks that have made comments on Zoom, and I can't do that because Chair Smith is right. We don't have that information.
And, you know, the Oregon legislature, I mean, what have they done in the last, they don't even allow people in the building, so all comment is online via email. I'm not advocating that at all. I don't want to go that route at all. But there has been areas, and City of Portland Council, I don't believe they allow public comment anymore. I'm not sure, I don't think, can't speak for Washington and Multnomah counties, but I believe the public comment is extremely limited to them. Clackamas County is a place where we are independent and we have opinions, yes. I respect that and I cherish that. But I will go back to what the original charge of this commission is. It's a nonpartisan governing body. Okay, Gary.
All right, thank you. Last is Commissioner Communications. I'm going to ask to hold that so we can go through the consent agenda requests. I thank the department directors who've been patiently waiting all this time. Juvenile Department has pulled their item, so moving on to Business and Community Services. Tom Riggs is going to do this one, Christina. Approval of an ordinance adopting a fine for violation of code, public urination and defecation in our county parks. So Tom Riggs will give you an update on this, please.
He is being brought in right now. Tom, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. There you go.
All right. Thank you, Chair Smith, Commissioners, Administrator Schmidt, and staff. I am Tom Riggs. I'm the Parks and Forest Manager. And County Parks is asking that the board approve a fine amount of $115 for violations of Clackamas County Code 606-050L4, which is public urination and defecation. It was the intended fine amount, but was inadvertently omitted from the 2020 fine increases. Subsection L4 was a new addition to county code approved by the BCC in 2019, enacted in response to State versus Corselius, which was a 2018 court case from Portland, which removed offensive littering as a possible enforcement tool. So that was added to the county code to address that. But since it was a new code change, it didn't exist on the old fines template that was filled out and updated when updating the park fines. So it's simply a clerical error. It wasn't included. The existing subsections of L had fines ranging from 115 to 300, but we failed to specify an amount for subsection L4 specifically. So we're just asking to assign that $115 fine to subsection L4. Thank you. Any questions?
Comments from commissioners?
So moved.
I second. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're not deciding today, you're just agreeing to put it on the consent agenda.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay, okay.
Any other comments from commissioners?
Chair Smith, yeah, this is a very good idea. I support this.
Okay, all right.
Commissioner Fisher has her hand up.
Commissioner Fisher?
Thank you. So I remember when we passed these codes and I had a question back then to make sure that all of our parks had restrooms that were available, and the answer was yes. And so I'm just asking that question again.
Yes, for the most part. I will say there are, in the off-season at some of our undeveloped parks, we do not have porta potties year-round, but during the use season, we either have porta potties or restrooms at all of our facilities that are open to the public.
Okay, so just my only caveat would be in situations where there are not restrooms available, I just don't think it's a good idea to fine someone if they don't have access to a facility. So I don't know if we want to remove that from the consent agenda item for further work or what we need to do. So Gary, I take your advice on that.
Other commissioners, do you agree with that? Do you want to have further discussion on this, a policy session, discussion item?
Well, I
think it's
think
necessary.
Commissioner Fisher raises a good point from a humanitarian, just to be humane about the whole situation. I think that's a reasonable request.
Okay, let's do a policy session. So I'm sorry, Tom, it will not go on the consent agenda. Please bring it back to the board with your recommendation with this
Commissioner
input.
Scholl has a comment, Gary.
I was just going to say that the need for this fine is not so much for areas that aren't used and don't have bathroom facilities. It's more for areas that do have bathroom facilities that still see this problem.
So we want to bring that back, Gary.
I'd say bring it back to a policy session to address and discuss. So Tom, would you please do that at the next opportunity? We'll pull it. We will not put it on the consent agenda yet.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, Health, Housing, and Human Services. Rod, are you doing these? Great. All right, Rod Cook is here, Deputy Director of the Department. I'll announce them for you, Rod. First, approval of a revenue agreement with Care Oregon for financial support for dental services at the new Sandy Health Clinic. Please go ahead, Rod.
Yes, and this first is a revenue contract with the state, with Care Oregon. It's for $391,389. No general funds are involved in this particular contract. I could read more in terms of what it's going to do, but it's really for the dental clinic, which Administrator Schmidt has already described. And if I'm going too fast, let me know. I'm just trying to get through.
Perfect,
So you guys can.
Yeah, commissioners, any comments? Do we take each one of these individually, or do
I
we?
was going to say thumbs up to go forward to the consent agenda.
Thumbs up, commissioners, are we okay with this one?
That's good.
I think so.
Great.
Mr. Cook?
Next, approval of a federal sub-recipient grant amendment with Ant Farm to provide part-time drug and alcohol youth peer support specialist for rural Clackamas County and Sandy and Estacada. Rod.
And this would be funds that come to us already through SAMHSA, which is a federal agency. It's for $32,750.48. Like Mr. Smith said, it's for Ant Farm, and there's no general funds associated with this particular sub-recipient agreement.
Commissioners?
Chair
Commissioner
Smith.
Scholl?
Rod, what's the performance of Ant Farm so far on similar?
They've been a stellar partner of ours. They're in the Sandy area, and they really do rural work really well and have multiple programs, a good menu of services, and are well received in that community.
Okay, thank you.
And I saw all thumbs up from the Zoom
All thumbs
commissioners.
up, okay.
Great. Next, approval of a sub-recipient emergency shelter grant agreement with Clackamas Women's Services to provide rapid rehousing and shelter services. Rod, go ahead.
This is another flow-through of funds from the federal government to our local partners, $302,500. Clackamas Women's Services works with us, domestic violence mostly, multiple programs in the community, stellar performance, and we think this would be a good partnership to follow through with.
And, let's see, no general fund.
No general funds involved in this.
Thank you, Rod. Commissioners, any comments? Thumbs up?
I see thumbs up.
Okay, next, approval of a sub-recipient agreement emergency shelter grant funds with Parrot Creek Child and Family Services to provide rapid rehousing services. Rod.
This is $10,000, again, federal funds flowing through us to the local partner. No general funds involved. great organization, has been around 20, 30 years, doing great work with you juveniles.
Thank you. Comments, commissioners? Thumbs up?
Oh, yeah, just, we don't need to pull this. We can move it through. But Rod, can you ask somebody to connect with me? Because I'm interested in what this is doing. But I don't want to stop it. I just want to flag that to connect on this, one.
Yeah, real quickly, they've merged with In-Home, who was really doing the homelessness work. So that's why you see Pear Creek moving into this arena in terms of working with homeless. But I will get somebody to get with you.
Yeah, I'm just wanting to understand the larger system for just that thing that you mentioned. You know what I'm thinking. Thank you.
Thumbs up, all good?
Yes.
Okay, great. Next, approval of a sub-recipient agreement emergency shelter grant funds with Clackamas County Children's Commission to provide rapid rehousing services. Rod.
Okay, this one is another one, federal funds flowing through us to the local partner, $93,500. Children's Commission basically is known as a Head Start. You would know them more for that, but they're working with those same families, and so if anyone's needing shelter, or they're working with them to get them into housing rapidly. No general funds are involved in this agreement either.
Commissioners, comments?
Just one.
Yeah.
Rod, is this something, maybe oversubscribed is not the right word, but are we meeting the need?
Overall, I don't know if I can't say if we're meeting the need, but I know that they deal with families who are early in their, they have young children, they're early in their careers, and so the poverty levels are higher at the Head Start pieces, so those would be the families who would be needing those services. And so they're right there with them, and it's kind of a natural outgrowth of what Head Start's been accomplishing.
Yeah, thank you. I just always concerned that, we're trying to meet the needs. It's just children that are homeless are not receiving the basic needs, nutrition and all that is just a concern for all of us, and something I always worry about.
Yes.
Any other comments from commissioners? Thumbs up? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, finally, approval of a federal sub-recipient grant agreement with Northwest Housing Alternatives for emergency shelter services. Rod.
Again, federal funds flowing through us to the local partner, $24,521. Northwest Alternatives is into homelessness and sheltering, so this is giving them more assets to do what provide their services. No general funds are involved in this agreement as well.
Comments from commissioners?
See me?
Seeing none.
Okay.
Thumbs up. Thank you,
Well
Rod
done, Rod.
Cook.
Thank you very much.
And Gary, when these appear on the consent agenda, they will have the amounts written on them.
Yes, they will.
Thank
Yes.
you very much.
All right, next, disaster management. Nancy Bush, the director of that department, will come for this one. Amendment number 1 to the contract between Tetra Tech for debris monitoring and management services. Go ahead, please, Nancy.
Yes, thank you. So as I mentioned last week, we were working on this amendment for Tetra Tech. This is to provide services, and they will be the go-between with ODOT for the IGA that you did sign last week. It's $228,000 is the maximum. We don't think we'll go that high, but we wanted to be sure we didn't have to come back to the commission, and just in case. Half of that we estimate will come from the road fund, and half of it will come from general fund. And we will seek reimbursement from FEMA on that at 75%, so we would have a 25% match.
Comments?
I do not see any.
Thumbs up, commissioners?
Seeing thumbs up?
Yes, thank you, Nancy, for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nancy. All right, finally, Water Environment Services. It's going to be Chris Story and Nate Boderman online. Christina. So these are two public hearings that are actually on your agenda already for this Thursday. We missed a step here, and we're going to correct it today, and will not happen in the future. But for this week's purposes, the two Water Environment Services items are board order for boundary change proposals related to Clackamas County Service District Number 1. So Chris and Nate, can you please fill in the board?
Sure. What we have for you is two different requests for property owners to annex into the Clackamas County Service District Number 1 boundary. I was going to provide a little bit of background just to generally explain why these types of actions come before you, but given the late hour, I think I'll dispense with that, just leave it at by noting that in order to receive services from a particular district, the property must be within the boundaries of that district. So in simplest terms, that's what you're approving on Thursday. I'll also note that by the time these proposals reach you, the service district in any affected city has already approved the request, which really signals that the provider is willing and able to serve the property. So your job as board is really focused on the big picture to ensure that there are no glaring conflicts between service providers, and the annexation of the property really represents a logical extension of these urban type services. So I'll leave it with that. If you have any specific questions about the two proposals, Chris Story is here from WES, he can answer those. I'll mention that we do have public hearings scheduled for these annexations, which is required by state law. So to the extent you have specific questions, we'll try to answer those for you here today, but recognize that you'll have an opportunity on Thursday, full public hearing to flesh those out. And we would need to make any disclosures of any substantive discussions we have with you here today. So I'll turn it over to Chris if he has anything to add.
I'll just add, excuse me, I'll just add that this is not you acting as the governing body of CCSD1, although it does impact, WES, and that is CCSD1 as an underlying component. This is you acting as a boundary commission for all service districts within Clackamas County. And it just happens to be a WES service district, but it could be an independent district. And these hearings are scheduled. We have to publish the notice usually several weeks in advance to give people the statutorily required notice. So we appreciate you moving forward with the process this week.
Gary?
So all I ask of WES staff is, can you just give me or the board a heads up and with as much advance notice as you can of when these are coming before the board? So again, the no surprise rule, it was just on the agenda. I know there's a process that occurs as Nate just described, but if you can just give us a heads up, like what's coming in the next few weeks, please, and going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is part of the transition. Typically this process normally flowed through Mary Rathke. And I think we're all just sort of getting our bearings about how to work that now that great bastion of institutional knowledge has retired.
Yep, got it. Thank you. Okay, so it's already on the agenda, but this is an understanding of why. Thank you, commissioners. All that's left now is commissioner communications, but we're at the noon hour. Commissioner Savas has to leave. We could do this in the afternoon if you prefer. Sure.
Yeah, commissioners, is that okay this afternoon?
Great.
Good.
Sounds like the plan.
Okay, we will recess until 1:30.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay.